Forgot the welcome.
Berries. Don't care. Welcome to Razz My Berries Reviews.
I hope the microphone can pick that up on your
I
computer.
hope it does too. Today we are continuing our Halloween-themed episodes by reviewing Friday the 13th, the very first one.
I haven't seen any of the other ones, and this was my first time seeing this one, but
Same
from
here.
what I've heard, this is completely different from what all of the sequels are. They get into more of the supernatural side of things.
Like you said, this was your first time seeing it. This is my first time seeing it. I'm fairly familiar with the franchise.
I am not.
I've seen bits and pieces, like when AMC would have their Halloween movie marathon. I've seen clips. I haven't watched any of them from beginning to end. This was the first one that I've seen from beginning to end. So despite how crazy it can get, it still has quite a bit of a big fan base, surprisingly. But for my first time seeing it, I wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. It hasn't aged well, I'd say.
So here was my thought. For lack of a better way to put it, it's kind of slow on the uptake. When it gets to that climactic part of the movie, then it's like, wow, this is surprisingly good. Because, for the first 2/3 or so of the movie, I was like, it's not bad, but it's not good. It's more like a reenactment that you might find in a documentary. It's all of these people are dying, but there's no real plot.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that they kind of switched up having on-screen and off-screen deaths. Because, with slasher films, especially nowadays, people like to have these big, gruesome deaths on screen. I mean, that's fine having some of them, but I personally think that implied deaths, even if you like this movie did, go back later and show the dead body, I still think that works really well, if not better, than having
a spectacle of gore and blood everywhere. Yeah, no, I agree, because then it gives an audience member somewhat, because if they come back, then it's not as much as a surprise. Or maybe it is more of a surprise. Like, oh, I thought you were dead, and then they're still alive, and then they get killed. But it leaves an audience member wondering, because especially if how they execute it, you might think, oh my gosh, I wonder if he got away, or oh no, he's dead. Like, you get that a little bit of split in that audience members watching in the theater, and I like that. I don't need to see we don't need to. Gore does not equal better. More gore does not equal better for a film. It can, in fact, ruin it.
When you first see Mrs. Voorhees, she comes out of nowhere, and at that moment you're like, oh, she's the killer.
Yeah.
I mean, Jason Voorhees is a very popular name. People who have not seen this movie or any of the subsequent movies know Jason Voorhees and know The Mask.
Exactly.
But if you know that and go into this movie and see, oh wait, no, the first movie starts out with Mrs. Voorhees being the killer.
Yeah.
Like that was it caught me off guard.
I'm glad you weren't spoiled by that. As far as watching it, though, it was very satisfying to watch that, because when you hear Friday the 13th, you think of Jason, you think of the hockey mask, you think of the machete. I like that we started off with Mrs. Voorhees, because then it kind of makes a little more sense after, like some of the sequels, they make a little more sense to me. Because that little sound effect they have, it's which is actually kill, 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 ma, ma, ma.
Yeah.
which I did research and I found out that was basically she was hearing Jason telling her, kill them, mom, kill them.
The sounded more like a ch.
Yeah, exactly.
Chi.
Yeah.
Which, doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Because I agree. No, it sounded like that. It's like, does that really say kill, ma, ma, ma? Because it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, and the ma didn't. I don't know what I was hearing. It was.
I heard like.
Ha,
yeah.
I think is what I heard.
Yeah, that's what I kept hearing. Was. Ch, ch, ch.
Yeah. For the kind of horror music that they had in there, I thought that worked out.
That worked nicely.
Well.
Yeah, I thought that would.
Up until the death of Mrs. Voorhees, there was only music when she was present. I can't remember right off the top of my head. I think there was opening credit music.
Yes, I'm pretty sure there was. The whole glass breaking through with the Friday the 13th.
Yeah. But yeah, for the rest of the movie, that was the only time that they used music, was when she was present in the scene.
Yeah.
And even then, it was mostly just the... I keep wanting to call it ambient sound, because it wasn't entirely music.
Yeah.
It wasn't musical in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, when she was revealed, then you get all these violins shrieking as a brass player. Well, okay, I won't say as a brass player, but personally, I'm not a huge fan of violins.
I was thinking about playing the violin back in school, but I stopped because I could not handle the squeakiness of the playing of the strings.
I like violin solos, but like when you have an orchestra playing the violins playing harmonies together, I'm not as big of a fan as them, because violins, it's so easy for violins to not be in tune with each other. Well, anyway.
I kind of want to talk about like the location and the makeup stuff. So like that camp is actually still in use to this day, and it's actually in New Jersey.
It was a Boy Scout camp, and the only way that the Boy Scout camp was going to let them use it was if they donated a big chunk of money to the Boy Scouts of America.
Yeah. I thought the location was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was really nice to look at.
And, that really does help to have all of your sets. Well, except for the bathroom set. They did have to make the bathrooms.
Yeah, they had to make the bathrooms.
Yeah, it really was a beautiful camp. Really well located, having that lake right next to it.
Yeah, it worked perfectly. It really sold that. And as much as I love the CG, I like the green screen stuff, I like, the makeup worlds, but there's just something so much better about an actual authentic location shot. And I thought it was funny that they actually used some of the pizza ovens for some of their makeup work. Yeah, I read that as I'm reading. Makeup effect, latex appliances were made in the pizza oven at the camp where it was being filmed. Speaking of that, I thought the makeup effects weren't that bad. They were actually kind of decent.
Well,
some of them do stand out a little, obviously.
I mean, are you talking more about the prosthetics?
Yeah, the prosthetic stuff.
I thought the body hanging on the door looked really nice. I cannot remember the names. The kid who had his head held down. And no, that wasn't it.
No,
it was the arrow through the chest.
Arrow through the chest.
I thought that was really well.
Yeah, that was one I was really impressed by.
Granted, that shot didn't go well, but then Mrs. Voorhees being beheaded, I didn't think that one went too well.
No, and it's a little baloney to me because there's nothing that
The
strong.
hands kept twitching after death, and I'm like, that's not realistic.
No.
She would have fallen down. Well, okay, and there's not a blade
Sharp
enough
Thank you.
to get that clean of a swipe and have the head fly that far and well as it did.
Yeah, that's where I call baloney.
Yeah. There were two big things that I were like, that's a little ridiculous in this movie. So that part with her getting beheaded, and the part at the end where Jason drags Alice into the lake.
Yeah.
I
don't like that part because so after she's killed Mrs. Voorhees, she goes into the canoe and falls asleep in the canoe. Why would you go in the canoe? Why?
Well,
can you please try to explain that to me?
You know, I found that pretty realistic. She was kind of having a nervous breakdown because everyone else at the camp was dead, and she had to kill someone.
Now that actually is something we probably should address is the characters themselves, because notice we're having a hard time even remembering some of them. That's one of the, I think, kind of the flaws of it. There was really no character development. They were pretty much sent up to be fodder. But
I will say, I thought the characters were actually very realistic.
That I do agree with, yes. That was one point I actually did remember wanting to make.
It was a bunch of teenagers going up to camp.
Having fun.
Day or two early.
To get ready to reopen.
And, you know, they were being teenagers.
Exactly, and being oblivious to what was going on. And that part of it I did like. Because, like, it's very realistic. I mean, because you're not going out there suspecting, man, this is the woods, this is a scary place, maybe something bad might happen. No, you see them having fun. You see them being teenagers, and they sold that pretty well, I'd say.
Yeah.
It was just that, like, as far as who they are as individual characters, you don't really get too much of that.
You get it more with the guys than the girls.
Yeah.
Because the guys have a bit more distinct personalities.
I just didn't feel any connection.
No, I get you.
Yeah, but... Well, with all these comments now, let's go ahead and take a look. I did have one friend who reached out to me on my Facebook who wanted to have a little comment about Friday the 13th. It's actually one of... he's a big fan of the franchise. His name is Tyler, and he wanted to tell me... I'd say it was one of the first horror films that the killer is not who you think it is, and it's great. And I agree with that, with my friend there, Tyler, because... like you said, I'm glad you had that experience where you had no idea who the killer was.
Yeah.
And you got that, like, you didn't know who it was, and then it was the person you did not expect. Just randomly put it in there. I had a really good experience with this. It wasn't terrible. Is it something I'd say, oh yeah, I'll make sure to watch it every Halloween? No, but it's still fun every once in a while to watch. So, well, thank you, Tyler, for at least commenting. I know that was a bit far back, but thank you. So now we're going to look over at Rotten Tomatoes, because I couldn't really find anything on Twitter. Mostly, no one tweeted it. So this was by Alan Jones. He said, Cunningham skillfully works up plenty of gory scares while also allowing the audience to sympathize with the counselors. I really didn't feel too much sympathy with the counselors, honestly.
I did after you find out Mrs. Voorhees' motivation for the killings.
Yeah,
like,
that was one thing I wanted to say. It's like,
I don't advocate for this, but I can kind of understand killing the counselors that were there when your son died. But it's however many years it was later, like 20 years later, I think.
20 years.
You're still killing counselors just because the camp opened back up. I know you're crazy.
Yeah, we know.
I know you have absolutely lost it.
Yep.
But That's no excuse.
Yeah, really, it isn't. It's not an excuse, but as far as character motivation, it's believable. Especially if you think she's crazy. And which is, by the way, Betsy did a really good job of selling crazy. Kill her, mommy. Kill her. She sold that, and it was really well done. And now that you kind of mention it, yeah, I kind of am feeling a little more sympathy now for the counselors for all the time, because they were completely clueless. They had no idea what happened. And two, now they're just like they're being killed off, and they had no idea why. Mm-hmm. And back to your comment about like Survivor Girl, I don't know what her name was. Alice. So when she passing out on the canoe, all that happening, like they all died because this thing happened. And they had no clue. They were being blamed for something they weren't responsible for. So yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah, you can sympathize with them a little bit. Dave Kerr says that for all its shoddiness, the film manages just barely to achieve its ignoble goals. It delivers what it promises.
I don't feel like the film promised anything to begin with.
I honestly don't think it promised anything to begin with, but I knew what I was getting into because of all that. Okay, so favorite point of this. I have to go with the reveal of Mrs. Voorhees, because it just was a really good payoff, I feel like. It was seeing her motivation, explaining, what happened, why she's doing this, clearly seeing how crazy she is. I really enjoyed that part.
I think my favorite point was when Mrs. Voorhees killed the head counselor when he got back to camp in the middle of the night. Because that actually tells a lot more about who the killer is than you might initially think. Mm-hmm. Well, that and when the first girl, Annie, I think.
The hitchhiker, basically.
Yeah, when she was killed, well, when she was first picked up, she found this person to be, at first glance, a very trustworthy person. Mm-hmm. They don't tell you that the driver's a woman. They go a little bit overboard trying to keep it as ambiguous as possible. Mm-hmm. But then when the head counselor is killed, it's someone that he knows.
Yeah.
And someone that he knows well, and someone who has been to the camp. Mm-hmm. Obviously he didn't know about what Mrs. Voorhees was doing, but showing how well he knew her, and that he was surprised to see her there, but not overly surprised. Mm-hmm. It really is a bigger piece of the puzzle than you might initially think.
So now we go to final verdict. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
I can go first.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I am going to give it, I was about to say 8 out of 10, 4 out of 5. As I said in the beginning, it's a movie with a bit of a slow uptake, but when it finally gets to its destination, it's really well done. And it has a cast of, Mrs. Voorhees excluded, a cast of very realistic characters. Mm-hmm. As stupid as they are.
Yeah.
Work really well together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and as far as comparing it to horror films nowadays, it just has a unique charm and believability to a degree, and it was just a fun. I remember just laying on my couch watching it and just having a good time watching it. Because, it was the start of the slasher stuff before it got really ridiculous and all more about the gore and how the kills work. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to also agree with you with the 4 out of 5. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like it's right there at a 4. Because, like I said, just it really worked. And I really liked the location. I really liked the reveal at the end. It just it was just nice. I can see why people enjoy this it's because it definitely is. It feels classic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, that gives us a grand total of 8 out of 10, like I was just about to say earlier.
Well, that concludes our Halloween month, doesn't it?
It's been a really rough month of editing for me.
Yeah. Thank you for doing all the editing while I'm taking my online class. But yeah, no. Do you want to do real quick which movie we enjoyed the most out of the 4 that we watched?
Sure.
Poltergeist. I have to go with Poltergeist. Gonna say that one was the most enjoyable.
I thought you would have gone with Ghostbusters.
Well, yeah. Well, okay, let me explain a little bit why I go with Poltergeist. Because as far as Ghostbusters goes, I love Ghostbusters, don't get me wrong. But I know that story, and I've seen the movie before. And, I feel like it would be a bit of a cop-out to go with that, since I am a fan of Ghostbusters, and I really love the movie. I wanted to go with Poltergeist because it was a movie I'd never seen before. And my first experience of it was just amazing. So it felt more right to go with Poltergeist. But yeah, in my heart, maybe Ghostbusters, but in my head, it's Poltergeist.
Yeah. Mine's Poltergeist as well.
It was just really good.
The story, the characters, everything worked really well in that movie.
Yeah,
and
just
not to say that they didn't work well in other movies, but this one has a bit extra.
Yeah, it just has that little bit of it factor to it. So, well, with that being said, if you like the video, click like. If you want to see more of our videos, there will be a link to one of the previous Halloween episodes. If you have suggestions of what we should review for next Halloween, leave a comment below or tweet us at RMB Reviews. Leave it on Facebook. And I think I've plugged everything in.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Have a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.